A biker found a little boy, and that discovery triggered a cold, calculated form of vengeance you've never seen before. This isn't about violence. It's about using the enemy's own system to bury him alive. A story of outlaw justice that operates in the shadows of the law. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The wind that night didn't blow, it stabbed. It was the kind of cold that made the air feel like glass in your lungs. Saul was an old wolf. He'd been an enforcer for the Sacred Heart Charter for 30 years. Now he was mostly retired. He just fixed the bikes and told stories, but he still took a walk every night to clear his head. He was walking behind the old supermarket, taking a shortcut back to the clubhouse. The dumpsters smelled sour. That's when he saw the small shape, a pile of rags, no, a little boy. The boy was curled up, not moving. He was maybe 5 years old. He wore only thin pajamas, no coat, no shoes, his lips were blue. Saul's heart stopped. He knelt down, he touched the boy's neck. A pulse, faint but there. The boy was alive but just barely, frozen. Saul didn't panic. He had seen bad things. He saw this for what it was. This was no accident. The boy was placed here. This was a punishment. Someone had put this child out in the cold to die. Rage, cold and sharp, filled Saul's chest, but he pushed it down. First, the boy. He took off his own heavy leather coat. He wrapped the boy up in it. He picked him up, the child feeling light as a feather. He ran. He didn't go to a hospital, not yet. He went to the clubhouse. It was called the Orchard, a low brick building with a fenced yard. He kicked the door open. "Medic," he roared. The main room was warm, full of smoke and the smell of beer. Men were playing pool. They all turned. They saw Saul holding the bundle in his coat. Mercy was there. She ran over. She was a nurse before she married into the club. She pulled the coat open. She saw the little boy. "Get blankets, warm ones, now," she yelled. The club snapped into action. It was like a machine. Paul ran for the medical kit. James cleared a space on a big couch by the fireplace. Daniel started building up the fire. Saul laid the boy down. Mercy started checking him. "Hypothermia, severe, we need to warm him slow, get the heating pads, and call Elena, we need her network." Elena was the club's brain for legal and other things. She arrived 10 minutes later, her hair messy from sleep. She looked at the boy, her face going hard. "This is an Orchard case," she said quietly. The Orchard wasn't just a name, it was a protocol. The club had a secret. For years, they had been moving kids from bad homes, kids in danger. They used their network to hide them, get them new papers, place them with safe families far away. It was their quiet mission. While Mercy worked on the boy, Saul told them what he found. "We need to find who did this," Saul said, his voice like gravel. "We will," said Mark, the club president. He had just walked in. "But first, the boy. Then we use the protocol, not a bullet, the slow justice." It took hours. They warmed the boy with blankets and heating pads. They gave him warm sugar water sip by sip. His name, they learned, was Leo. He woke up crying, confused. He didn't talk much, but he clung to Mercy. The next morning, with Leo sleeping safely in a bed upstairs, they met. Mark, Saul, Elena, and David the lawyer. "We find the family," Mark said, quietly. It didn't take long. Saul went back to the dumpster. He asked around the nearby homeless community. A woman named Rita, who slept in a doorway, had seen something. "A man," she said, drove an old green truck. He dragged the little boy out. The boy was crying. The man yelled at him to learn his lesson. Then he drove off. "I was too scared to help, I'm sorry." Saul gave her $50. "You helped now." They had a description of the truck. The club had friends at the DMV. By that afternoon, they had a name, Carl Meeks, Leo's uncle. The boy's parents were dead. Carl was his guardian. Elena dug into Carl's life on her computer. He's small-time, works at a warehouse, has debts, he's mean, 2 previous calls to child services for neglect. Nothing stuck. "Good," Mark said. "Then we make it stick. Orchard Protocol, Phase 1. Phase 1 was the anonymous tip, but not a normal tip. They built a case. They had a guy who could hack. He got into Carl's computer. He found things, not just neglect. He found pictures of stolen goods from the warehouse. He found emails about selling prescription pills. They had a prospect follow Carl. He took pictures of Carl meeting with a known drug dealer. They used another contact to get Carl's bank records. They showed he was cashing checks and not reporting it to the IRS. Elena and David packaged it all up. It looked like it came from a concerned co-worker. They sent it to 3 places: Child Protective Services, the IRS, and the local police fraud unit. The package was perfect. It had dates, times, evidence. It was an ironclad tip. 2 days later, CPS and the police showed up at Carl's trailer. They found a filthy home. They found some of the stolen goods. They took Leo's younger sister, a baby named Rosie, into care immediately. They started asking Carl hard questions about his taxes and the pills. Carl was scared. He was arrested for possession of stolen property. It was a start. At the orchard, Leo was getting better. He was shy. He liked Daniel, who was young and gentle. Daniel would sit and build Lego with him for hours. One day, Leo looked at Daniel's patch. "Are you a bad man?" he asked. Daniel smiled. "No, kid. We're the guys who make sure bad men don't hurt little boys." Leo seemed to think about that. Then he went back to his Lego. The club's plan was working, but Carl made bail. He was angry. He knew someone had set him up. He didn't know who. He started asking around about his nephew. He heard a rumor the bikers had a kid. Carl was stupid, but he was mean. He drove by the orchard one night. He saw Leo through the window playing with Daniel. The next day, Carl went to the police. He told them the bikers had kidnapped his nephew. This was a problem. Police showing up at the clubhouse was trouble. Mark was ready. When the 2 detectives came, he let them in. He was polite. "We have the boy," Mark said. "We found him frozen behind a dumpster. We saved his life. We were going to call you today." He showed them Mercy's medical notes. He showed them the statement from Rita, the homeless woman. The detectives were suspicious, but the evidence was clear. Carl was a criminal. The bikers had saved the boy. One detective, a tough woman named Stella, looked at Mark. "You expect me to believe you're just good Samaritans?" Mark looked her right in the eye. "We believe in protecting those who can't protect themselves, always have. The boy stays with us until CPS finds a safe family. We have a lawyer. We'll follow all the rules." Detective Stella knew she couldn't win this. The club had too many lawyers and their story was too clean. She left. But Carl wasn't done. He was desperate. He called a local news reporter. He said the Hells Angels had stolen his children. It was going to be a story. The club had to move fast. Phase 2 of the Orchard Protocol. David, the lawyer, filed for emergency custody of Leo on behalf of the club's charitable trust. He had doctors' reports about Leo's injuries. He had the police report about Carl's arrest. It was a strong case. Elena worked her magic. She had a contact in family court. The hearing was set for the next week. The night before the hearing, Carl tried something stupid. He drank too much. He decided to get his nephew back himself. He drove to the orchard with a baseball bat. He didn't get close. 2 prospects, watching the cameras, saw him coming. They stepped outside as Carl pulled up. "Get lost, Carl," one said. "I want my boy," Carl yelled, swinging the bat. The prospect didn't fight. He just stepped aside and called the police. "Yes, officer, a man is trying to break into our business with a weapon. He's drunk." The police came and arrested Carl for assault and public drunkenness. He violated his bail. Now he was back in jail. The custody hearing was easy. The judge saw the evidence against Carl. She saw the clean, warm home the orchard provided. She granted temporary custody to the club's trust. Carl was in jail facing more charges, but the club wasn't done. Phase 3. David knew the prison system. The club had friends inside. They called in a favor. Carl was placed in a cell block with some men who remembered the club, men who knew what Carl had done to a child. They didn't touch him, not at first. They just talked. They told him what happened to child abusers in prison. They made him afraid. Then the final move. Elena had found the big thing. Carl's warehouse job. He had been skimming money for years, a lot of money. The club anonymously sent the proof to the warehouse owners and the FBI. Federal charges were added: tax evasion, wire fraud, embezzlement. Carl's world was crumbling through the legal system, piece by piece. He was looking at 20 years in federal prison. At the orchard, Leo was a new kid. He laughed, he played, he called Mercy Auntie Mercy. He followed Daniel like a puppy. One evening, Daniel was teaching Leo how to polish a motorcycle fender. Saul watched from across the room. He saw the way Daniel was with the boy, gentle, patient. Later, Saul found Daniel alone. "You're good with him," Saul said. Daniel shrugged. "He's a good kid." "You thinking of keeping him?" Saul asked. It was a big question. Daniel looked at the floor. I don't know if I'm the right guy. I'm a prospect. My life isn't stable." "Sometimes the most stable thing for a kid is knowing someone will fight for them," Saul said. "You'd fight for him, we all would." Daniel nodded. He was thinking about it. Weeks passed. Carl took a plea deal, 15 years in a federal prison far away. He was gone. The club had won. They had destroyed a monster using his own sins and the power of the law. It was a cold, clean justice. Now they had to decide Leo's future. The family court wanted to place him in the foster system. The club held a vote. They decided to try to keep him. David filed papers for Daniel to become a foster parent with the whole club as a support system. It was a long shot, but the club had friends. The judge from the custody case liked what she saw. She approved it. Leo had a home with Daniel at the orchard. The night they got the news, the club had a party. It was a cookout. Leo ran around with the other club kids. Daniel watched him, a huge smile on his face. Saul sat next to Mark. "We did good," Saul said. "We did what was right," Mark corrected. "Our way, the empire stays strong, and it protects its own, even the smallest ones." Under the string lights, with music playing, Leo ran up to Daniel and hugged his legs. Daniel picked him up and put him on his shoulders. Leo laughed, holding onto Daniel's head. It was a family, a strange, tough, loyal family. They had not given up their empire. They had used its power to build a wall of safety around one small boy, and they had buried his tormentor not in the ground, but in a prison of paper and law. Life at the orchard settled into a new rhythm. Leo had his own small room next to Daniel. He started kindergarten. Mercy drove him in a minivan that looked very strange in the club's parking lot. The other kids at school didn't know about the patch on the back of Daniel's cut. They just knew Leo had a lot of big uncles who rode motorcycles. Daniel's life changed completely. He was still a prospect, which meant the worst chores. But now he had to be home by 3 p.m. to meet the school bus. The older members gave him a hard time, but it was a light-hearted, teasing kind of hard time. "Got your diaper bag, prospect?" Paul would yell as Daniel rushed to clean the bathrooms. "Very funny," Daniel would grumble, but he was smiling. One afternoon, Daniel was at the park with Leo. Leo was on the swings. A woman was there with a little girl. The woman was pretty, with kind eyes. Her name was Jessica. Her daughter, Chloe, was in Leo's class. "You're Leo's dad?" Jessica asked. Daniel hesitated. "Yeah, I am," it felt good to say. "I'm Jessica. Chloe talks about Leo all the time, says he's quiet but really good at building blocks." They talked. It was easy. Jessica was a single mom, a graphic designer who worked from home. She was smart and funny. Daniel found himself making her laugh. When Leo and Chloe ran off to the slide, Jessica's hand brushed his as she stood up. A little spark. She looked away, blushing. Daniel started seeing Jessica more. Playdates turned into coffee. Coffee turned into dinner. Leo loved Chloe and Chloe loved Leo. It was perfect. But Daniel was nervous. How do you tell a nice, normal woman that you're a Hell's Angels prospect, that your home is a clubhouse, that your family are outlaws? He decided to be honest. He took Jessica to the orchard for a barbecue. He warned her first. "My family is different. They're loud, they look scary, but they're good." Jessica was nervous but curious. When she walked into the backyard, she saw it all. Big, tattooed men grilling burgers, women with sharp laughs, kids running everywhere, and Leo, who ran straight to her, yelling, "Jessica." Mark shook her hand politely. Mercy gave her a hug. They were welcoming, but she could feel the power in the place, the watchful eyes. Later, Jessica said to Daniel, "It's intense, but I see how they love Leo. How they love you, that's what matters." Their relationship grew. It was a slow burn, a charged adult chemistry built on trust. One night after a movie at her place, they were standing at her door. The kids were asleep. He kissed her. It was deep and sweet and full of promise. She pulled him closer, her fingers tracing the back of his neck. He wanted to stay, but he had to get Leo home. They pulled apart, breathing hard, foreheads touching. "Soon," she whispered. "Soon," he agreed. Everything was good, too good. The threat came from an unexpected direction. A new social worker was assigned to Leo's case for a routine checkup. Her name was Mrs. Gable. She was strict by the book. She didn't like the club. She saw the patches, the bikes, the rumors. She came to the orchard for a visit. She looked around with a sour face. "This is not a stable environment for a child," she said, writing on her clipboard. "A single male in a motorcycle gang living in a compound. I'm recommending a review of the foster placement." Daniel panicked. "Leo is happy here, he's safe." "He's surrounded by criminals," Mrs. Gable said coldly. Mark stepped forward. He spoke calmly. "Ma'am, every man here has passed a background check for the foster agency. We have a clean record with child services. We have lawyers. We follow the law." Mrs. Gable was not impressed. "We'll see what the judge says." She was a problem with the power of the state. The club had to be careful. They couldn't intimidate a social worker. That would make everything worse. Elena had an idea. "We don't fight her, we outshine her. We show the court that this is the best place for Leo. We get testimonials from his teacher, his doctor, his therapist. We show he's thriving, and we dig into Mrs. Gable." They put a plan into action. David requested all of Leo's records from the agency, showing his improvement. Mercy got a glowing letter from Leo's kindergarten teacher. They even got Jessica to write a letter as a community member about how well-adjusted Leo was. Meanwhile, Elena looked into Mrs. Gable. She found a pattern. Mrs. Gable had a history of moving children from non-traditional homes into the system quickly. There were complaints, but nothing stuck. Then Elena found something bigger. Mrs. Gable's husband owned a company that did contract work for group homes. The same group homes where some of the kids she removed ended up. It was a conflict of interest, maybe even illegal. Elena packaged the information. She didn't send it to the court. She sent it to Mrs. Gable's boss at the agency and to a local news reporter who investigated government waste. The result was swift. Mrs. Gable was suddenly placed on administrative leave. Her cases were reviewed. A new, younger social worker was assigned to Leo. His name was Ben. He came to the orchard, saw Leo building a model motorcycle with Saul, and smiled. "This looks like a great place for a kid who likes engines," Ben said. He recommended the placement continue. The threat was gone. The club had won again using the system. But a bigger shadow was looming. The secret of the orchard, their underground railroad for kids, was at risk. They had moved dozens of children over the years. It was their most sacred, hidden mission. A federal task force was formed to investigate organized crime in the city. They weren't after drugs or guns. They were after money laundering and trafficking. And they heard a rumor about a motorcycle club moving kids. The task force was led by a sharp, determined agent named Russo. He was honest, and he was good at his job. He started watching the orchard. The club could feel the heat. They had to be more careful than ever. One night, a new case came in. It was a teenage girl, maybe 15. Her name was Fiona. She showed up at the back gate, bruised and scared. She said her stepfather was selling her to his friends. She had heard about a place that helped kids. They couldn't turn her away, but with Agent Russ watching, bringing her inside was too dangerous. Mark made a call. They activated the Apple pick. their code for an immediate move. They had a safe house 2 towns over, a quiet farm run by an old friend of the club, a woman named Rose. Daniel and James were tasked with taking Fiona there. They had to go at night without being followed. It was a tense ride. They put Fiona in a car, not on a bike. Daniel drove. James followed on his bike, watching for tails. They used back roads. They made it to the farm. Rose took Fiona in. The girl was safe. But on the way back, James saw a car, a dark sedan. It was following them from a distance. It was Agent Russo. James called Daniel. "We have a tail. Don't go back to the orchard. Go to the diner. Act normal." Daniel drove to an all-night diner. He went in and ordered coffee. James parked his bike and went in too. The sedan parked across the street. Agent Russo walked into the diner. He went straight to their booth. He showed his badge. "Daniel James, out for a late-night drive." "Just getting coffee," James said, smiling. "Who was the girl in the car?" Russo asked, his eyes hard. Daniel's heart jumped. "What girl?" "Don't play games. I saw you drop off a minor at a remote farmhouse. That's suspicious. I could bring you in for questioning right now." James leaned forward. "You saw us check on a family friend's daughter. She's having a tough time. We were making sure she got to her aunt's house safely. Is that a crime?" Russo knew he had no proof, but he had a thread. "I'm watching you, all of you. I will find out what you're doing with those kids." He left the diner. This was bad. Russo was close. If he found the network, people would go to prison for a long time, and the kids would have no one. The club had a meeting. It was serious. "We have to shut it down," Paul said. "The orchard, for now, it's too hot." Mark shook his head. "We can't. Kids will die. Fiona is just one. There are others coming." "We need to misdirect Russo," Elena said. "We need to give him a different crime to solve. Something bigger. Something that makes our kids' stuff look small." They came up with a plan. They would feed Russo information about a real crime, a drug shipment coming into the city, run by a rival gang, the Vandals. The club had gotten the tip from their own sources. They would give it to Russo anonymously, let him get a big win. It would make him look good, and it would take his eyes off the orchard. They executed the plan. The tip was perfect. Russo's task force raided a Vandal warehouse. They found guns and drugs. It was a major bust. Russo got a promotion and a commendation. The pressure on the orchard eased. Russo still didn't like them, but he was busy with bigger fish. Life returned to a kind of normal. Daniel's prospect period was ending. He was up for a vote to become a full-patched member. The night of the vote, Daniel was nervous. He sat outside the closed church meeting, the members-only meeting. Leo was with Jessica for the night. Inside, the men debated. Some said he was too distracted now, with a kid and a girlfriend. Others said that made him more grounded, more responsible. Saul spoke last. "I found the boy, but Daniel saved him, not just his body but his heart. He's shown loyalty to the club and to his new family. That's what we are, a family. I vote yes." The vote was unanimous. Daniel was in. They called him in. Mark handed him his top rocker, the patch that said Hell's Angels and the bottom rocker that said Pine Creek. The center patch with the winged skull. Daniel put them on his cut. He was no longer a prospect. He was a brother. The party that night was huge. Leo was there, sitting on Daniel's shoulders, looking at the patch on his dad's back. "You got your wings," Leo said. "Yeah, buddy, I got my wings." Later, under the stars, Daniel found Jessica. He was wearing his full cut. She touched the patch gently. "I'm proud of you," she said. "This life, it's dangerous," he said. "You sure you want this, want me?" She kissed him. "I want you and Leo. The rest is just details." Their kiss deepened, filled with the relief and passion of all they'd overcome. It was a promise of a future together. Months passed. The orchard continued its secret work, more carefully than ever. Leo grew taller. Daniel and Jessica got engaged. One day, Saul took Leo for a walk. They went to the park. Saul sat on a bench, watching the boy play. A woman sat next to him. It was Rita, the homeless woman who had seen Carl abandon Leo. "Hello, Saul," she said softly. Saul looked at her. "Rita, you look better." "I'm in a shelter now, getting help." She paused. "I heard about Carl, 15 years. That was your doing, wasn't it?" Saul didn't answer. Rita nodded. "Good, the world needs more gardeners." She smiled a sad smile. "You take good care of that sapling." She meant Leo. "We will," Saul said. She got up and walked away. Saul watched Leo, this small, strong boy who had survived the frost. He thought of all the other kids they had saved, the orchard they tended in the shadows. The club's empire was not built on fear alone. It was built on this, an unbreakable law of protection, for their own and for the lost ones who found their way to the gate. They were outlaws, they were gardeners, and their harvest was the future, one saved child at a time. Daniel's full patch party was the last truly carefree night the orchard would have for a while. The calm broke 2 weeks later with a single phone call. It was Rose from the Safe House Farm. "Mark, we have a problem. It's Fiona, the girl we brought. She's sick, really sick. Appendicitis, I think. She needs a hospital now." This was the nightmare scenario. Taking an undocumented, hidden minor to a hospital meant questions, forms, IDs. If they used her real name, the system would flag her and send her back to the stepfather they'd rescued her from. If they used a fake one, it was fraud and a trail for someone like Agent Russo to follow. Mark didn't hesitate. "Take her, use the emergency protocol. Jane Doe will handle the fallout." At the hospital, Rose did as instructed. Fiona was rushed into surgery. The hospital administrator, a man named Harris, demanded paperwork. "Who is this girl? Where are her guardians?" Rose, following the script, said, "She's a runaway we're helping through our church outreach. We don't have her paperwork. She needed help. Are you going to turn her away?" While this was happening, Mark mobilized the club. This wasn't about muscle, it was about influence. He called David the lawyer. "Get down to Mercy General. A Jane Doe is in surgery. Make sure no one calls CPS until we have a plan." David arrived, a wall of suits and legal briefs. He spoke quietly with the administrator. He mentioned patient confidentiality, charitable immunity, and hinted at a large future donation from the Orchard Family Charitable Trust. But across town, a different alarm bell rang. Agent Russ still had a digital alert on the club's name. A mention of Orchard at the hospital got flagged. He drove straight there. Russo walked into the waiting room. He saw David the lawyer, Rose the farmer, and Paul from the club, who had come for backup. Russo's eyes narrowed. A club lawyer, a known associate, and a medical emergency for an unknown minor, Russo said. "This looks like the piece I've been missing. Trafficking." "This is a medical emergency, Agent," David said calmly. "Nothing more." "We'll see." Russo moved to talk to a nurse. The club was in a tight corner. If Russo dug, he'd find Fiona's real name. He'd contact her stepfather. The whole hidden network could unravel. They needed a masterstroke. Elena provided it. "We give Russo a bigger truth to hide," she said. "We make him complicit." Her plan was audacious. They would tell Russo a partial truth, that Fiona was fleeing an abusive human trafficker, her stepfather, and the club was hiding her. But they would frame it as the club working as confidential informants for him. They would backdate a file, a fake memo suggesting Russ had asked them to keep the girl safe as part of a larger, ongoing investigation into the stepfather's ring. "It's a huge risk," Mark said. "If he doesn't bite, we're all going to prison." "He'll bite," Elena said. "He wants to take down bad guys. We're giving him a worse one and a win. His ego will do the rest." Mark and David requested a private meeting with Russo in a hospital conference room. "You're right, Agent," Mark began. "We're moving the girl, but not how you think." He laid out the story. Fiona was a victim, her stepfather a monster. The club had gotten a tip. They were hiding her as a favor to the investigation. Russo was skeptical. "I never authorized any such thing." David slid a folder across the table. It contained a fabricated email chain from a secure, anonymous server. It suggested Russo's CI9, the club, had been asked to secure the asset Fiona. The documents were perfect, created by Elena's best hacker. "This is bullshit," Russo said, but he was wavering. The documents looked real, and the case against the stepfather, which Elena had also packaged with real evidence she'd gathered from Fiona's phone, was solid and career-making. "Help us move her to a secure federal safe house," David said. "You get the collar on the stepfather, you save a victim, and this misunderstanding never happened. Or you try to bust us on a technicality, and that monster walks free to sell more kids. Your choice." Russo sat in silence for a long minute. He hated bikers, but he hated child traffickers more. He saw a path to a major arrest. "I never saw these documents," he said finally, pushing the folder back. "But if you have actionable intel on a trafficker, you will give it to me, now, and the girl goes into witness protection, my way." It was a deal. The club handed over the stepfather. Russo, using the club's information, led a spectacular raid a week later. It made the news. Russo was a hero. Fiona entered the witness protection program. She was safe. The orchard's secret was buried under an official, sanctioned operation. In the aftermath, a new peace settled. The club had danced with the devil in the form of the federal government and had survived. Their network was secure, now with an unwitting layer of protection. Months later, on a bright Saturday, Daniel and Jessica got married. It wasn't a church wedding. It was at the orchard. Leo was the ring bearer, wearing a tiny leather vest over his little suit. Chloe was the flower girl. The whole club was there. Mark stood as Daniel's best man. As Daniel and Jessica said their vows, Leo stood between them, holding each of their hands. Saul watched from the back, a rare smile on his face. He looked at the patch on Daniel's cut, at the family he had built. He thought of the frozen boy behind the dumpster. That boy was now surrounded by an army. The party went late, music played. Bikers danced with teachers, mechanics with graphic designers. It was a mosaic of a life built in the shadows and the light. Later, under a canopy of string lights, Daniel danced with Jessica. Leo, tired, was asleep on a pile of leather jackets nearby. "We did it," Daniel whispered into her hair. "We're just starting," she whispered back, placing his hand on her stomach. She was 8 weeks pregnant. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He held her tight. Across the yard, Mark raised a beer to Saul. "The orchard grows," he said. Saul clinked his bottle against Mark's. "Yeah, it does." They hadn't given up their empire. They had expanded its definition. It wasn't just territory, money, or fear. It was a fence around the vulnerable. It was a promise written not on paper, but in actions. Justice for the broken, sanctuary for the lost. A family forged in fire and frost that would never let its own fall again. The bikes would still roar, the business would still run, the world would still see outlaws. But here, in the heart of their empire, the most powerful thing they built was a home. Thank you for watching. What is the true price of justice? Is it more powerful to destroy a man in a courtroom than in an alley? Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Would you have chosen the same path?